At exactly 6:02 a.m., the snow was already up to my knees, and still falling sideways. This wasn't a cute, postcard snowfall. This was the kind that shuts down towns, swallows mailboxes, and turns driveways into invisible traps. The weather alert on my phone used words like life-threatening and emergency access only. I didn't need the warning. I could hear it in the wind screaming through the pines and feel it in the way the cold bit straight through my gloves. So I did what I always did. I rolled the snowblower out of the shed, pulled the cord, and let it roar to life. The engine cut through the silence like a chainsaw through glass. Snow shot 20 feet into the air as I carved a path down the narrow road leading from my property toward town. That road mattered. It wasn't just my driveway. It was the only reliable way out when storms like this hit. Ambulances, fire trucks, school buses. Everyone used it, whether they admitted it or not. I had barely cleared the first 100 feet when I heard yelling. "Hey, turn that off." I looked up to see a porch light snap on across the way. Then another. And then she appeared, barefoot in the snow, wrapped in a fluffy white bathrobe like she was stepping onto a movie set instead of into a blizzard. HOA Karen. She had her phone up already, camera pointed straight at me, red recording light blinking like an accusation. "Do you have any idea what time it is?" she screamed over the engine. I killed the snowblower, mostly because I couldn't hear her anyway. The sudden silence made the wind feel louder. "It's 6 in the morning," I said. "People need to get out." She marched closer, slipping once but catching herself, fury doing a better job than traction. "This community has quiet hours until 9 a.m. You are in violation." I stared at her. Snow was piling up behind me faster than I could clear it. "Quiet hours don't apply during emergencies," I said. "And this road." She cut me off with a sharp laugh. "This road is HOA controlled. You don't get to decide what's an emergency." That's when she reached out. Before I could react, her manicured hand slapped down on the ignition switch and shut the snowblower off. For a second, I honestly thought I'd imagined it. "You can't touch my equipment," I said slowly. "Oh, I absolutely can," she snapped, angling her phone closer to my face. "I'm documenting a violation. Excessive noise. Unauthorized snow removal. Interfering with HOA property." Behind her, headlights flickered on as neighbors tried, and failed, to back out of driveways already buried under fresh drifts. One car spun its tires helplessly. Another gave up entirely. Karen didn't look back. "If you turn that thing on again," she said, lowering her voice, "I'll fine you personally. And I'll have it confiscated." I looked past her at the road. Untouched snow stretched all the way down the hill toward town. Every minute I stood there arguing, it got worse. Heavier. More dangerous. "You're blocking emergency access," I said. She smiled. "Not my problem." Then she turned and shouted toward the houses behind her, "Everyone stay inside. The HOA will handle snow removal later." Later. I pulled my gloves tighter and looked down at the silent snowblower between us. That's when she said the sentence that changed everything. "You don't own this road," she said confidently. "The HOA does." I didn't argue. I just nodded, and made a mental note to check my deed the moment I got back inside. Because if she was wrong, this morning was about to get very inconvenient for the entire neighborhood. The violation notice hit my inbox before the storm even slowed down. I hadn't been inside 10 minutes when my phone buzzed, once, twice, then again. Subject line, all caps, official HOA enforcement action. Sent at 6:41 a.m. Karen wasted no time. According to the email, I was being fined for excessive mechanical noise, unauthorized alteration of HOA-controlled road conditions, and my personal favorite, failure to comply with a board member's lawful directive. The total fine was already listed at $750, with a warning that additional penalties would accrue daily if I continued snow removal without approval. Outside, the wind howled like it was laughing. I watched through the window as the road disappeared again, every inch I'd cleared swallowed whole. Cars were already stuck. One neighbor tried to push through the drift and bottomed out instantly. Another abandoned their SUV halfway down the hill. Karen, meanwhile, stood safely on her porch, phone glued to her hand, narrating the chaos like a live reporter. I could see her pointing at the road, nodding dramatically, telling someone that the HOA had it under control. They absolutely did not. By 8 a.m., the situation went from inconvenient to dangerous. A woman 2 houses down slipped on her steps and couldn't get up. Someone called for help, but the private plow contractor Karen loved to brag about texted back that they wouldn't be coming until conditions improve. Conditions, of course, would never improve if no one touched the road. I stepped outside again, snowblower ready, when Karen appeared as if summoned by spite alone. "I told you not to start that," she snapped. "You're escalating your fines." "I'm trying to make the road passable," I said. "People are trapped." She smirked and gestured behind her. 2 guys in reflective jackets were already at work, not clearing the road, but pushing snow back onto it, piling fresh berms where I'd cleared earlier. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. "HOA directive," she said sweetly. "No alterations until authorized." That's when the email blast went out to the whole neighborhood. Karen had CC'd everyone. Due to one homeowner's non-compliance, snow removal is temporarily suspended. Do not attempt to leave the community until HOA-approved services arrive. Phones lit up all around me as people read it. Some replied asking for help. Others demanded explanations. Karen didn't respond to any of them. Around mid-morning, a school bus tried to make it up the hill and slid sideways, stopping just short of the ditch. That finally did it. I went inside, sat at my desk, and opened the county records website. If Karen wanted to play authority games, I was done guessing. I pulled up parcel maps, easement filings, road maintenance agreements, everything tied to that stretch of land. The more I read, the colder my hands got, and not from the weather. Because the road Karen was claiming as HOA-controlled wasn't listed that way at all. It was a private access easement, recorded decades before the HOA even existed. The HOA had permission to use it, not own it, not regulate it, and definitely not shut it down. Better yet, every single lot in that subdivision depended on that easement as their only legal route to town. No alternate access. No backup road. Nothing. At noon, another email came in from Karen, this one sharper. Final warning. Continued defiance will result in legal action and physical removal of unauthorized equipment. I leaned back in my chair and smiled for the first time all day. Because now I understood something she didn't. She hadn't just overstepped. She had shut down the only road her entire HOA depended on, and blamed the one person legally allowed to control it. And if she wanted to keep pushing, the next move was going to change the balance of power completely. I didn't sleep that night. While the storm finally eased, my laptop stayed open, tabs stacked like evidence on a courtroom table. Deeds. Easement language. County plats dating back 40 years. The more I read, the clearer it became. Karen hadn't just misunderstood the rules, she had built her authority on a complete fiction. The road in question wasn't HOA property, wasn't maintained by them, and wasn't insured by them. It was a recorded private access easement running directly through my parcel, granting the HOA use, not control. That distinction mattered more than she could possibly imagine. By morning, I had printed everything. Highlighted sections. Survey diagrams. Even the original development approval showing the HOA was warned, in writing, that they were dependent on a private road they did not own. I stood at my window watching residents try to dig their way out with shovels and snow brushes, exhaustion written on every face. No plows. No contractors. Just silence and growing frustration. Karen finally broke it. At 9:17 a.m., she marched down the road with 2 HOA board members in tow, boots crunching through snow that had refrozen into uneven slabs. She didn't knock. She banged on my door like she already had the authority of a warrant. When I opened it, she thrust her phone toward me, recording again. "We're done being patient," she said. "You will remove your equipment from HOA property immediately." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I simply handed her the first page of the county filing. "This road runs through my parcel," I said. "The HOA has an easement for access only. You don't own it." She laughed, actually laughed, and waved it away. "Easements don't give you control. Everyone knows that." "That's funny," I replied, flipping to the highlighted section. Because this one does. Maintenance, safety, and temporary closure authorities sit with the landowner. That's me. The two board members leaned in, reading now. One of them frowned. The other went pale. Karen didn't notice. She was already ranting about fines, liens, and lawyers. You're threatening access to an entire community, she snapped. That's illegal. I met her eyes. Blocking a private road during a declared winter emergency is illegal too. Especially when emergency vehicles rely on it. That's when she hesitated, just a fraction of a second. Enough. I stepped aside and gestured toward the window. Parked just beyond my fence was my truck, chains on the tires, engine already warming. Beside it sat the snowblower she'd shut down yesterday, freshly fueled. And behind them, perfectly positioned, were the materials I used for winter safety berms, heavy, compacted snow and barriers designed to close roads when conditions weren't safe. I'm reopening the road, I said calmly. Under my authority. And if we stop you, she challenged. I picked up my phone and unlocked it. Then I call the sheriff and report unlawful interference with a private access easement during an emergency. The silence that followed was louder than the storm had been. Karen turned to the board members, expecting backup. She didn't get it. One of them muttered something about checking with counsel. The other just stared at the road, realizing what it meant if I decided it was unsafe. Because for the first time, they understood the truth. This wasn't an HOA road they could bully their way onto. It was mine. And if conditions required it, I could legally close it, taking their only way to town with it. I didn't block the road out of spite. I blocked it because, legally and practically, it was no longer safe. By mid-afternoon, the temperature had dropped hard. Everything the storm left behind had turned into ice, deep ruts frozen solid, snowbanks collapsing inward, visibility dropping again as wind kicked up loose powder. I walked the stretch carefully, documenting conditions with my phone, narrating like an insurance adjuster. When I finished, I did exactly what the easement allowed me to do. I positioned my truck across the narrowest section of the road, set reflective triangles, and built a compacted snow berm reinforced with barriers. Clear signage went up. Road closed. Unsafe conditions. Private access. It took less than 10 minutes for the panic to start. First came the calls. Then the shouting. Then the long line of cars forming on the far side of the bend, brake lights glowing red through falling snow. People got out, waving arms, demanding answers. Someone tried to squeeze past and immediately slid sideways, bumping the berm with a dull thud. That's when Karen appeared, storming down the road like she could intimidate winter itself. She was screaming before she even reached me, accusing me of kidnapping an entire neighborhood, threatening lawsuits, jail, national news. Phones were out everywhere now. Neighbors were recording her, not me. "This is illegal," she shrieked. "Move it now." I didn't respond. I simply called the sheriff. When the patrol SUV arrived, lights flashing softly against the snow, Karen sprinted toward it like she'd won a prize. She talked fast, loud, and non-stop, pointing at me, the truck, the road, the sky, everything except the facts. The deputy listened calmly, then asked a single question: "Who owns the road?" Karen launched into a speech about HOA authority and community rules. I handed over the folder. Deed. Easement. County map. Emergency conditions documentation. The deputy took his time. He walked the road. Inspected the berm. Read the filings twice. Then he turned to Karen and said, very clearly, "Ma'am, this is a private access easement. The landowner has the authority to close it for safety. You do not." The crowd went silent. Karen tried to interrupt. He raised a hand. Furthermore, interfering with emergency access or directing contractors to obstruct a private road during a declared weather emergency is a serious issue. I suggest you stop. Her face changed then, not anger, not confidence, but something closer to fear. She demanded the road be reopened immediately. The deputy shook his head. That decision isn't yours. I waited until he looked at me. Once it's safe, I said, I'll reopen it. With proper clearance. He nodded. That's reasonable. Karen lost it. She screamed about lawsuits, elections, retaliation. Neighbors started pushing back, yelling that they'd been lied to, that their kids missed school, that medical appointments were cancelled. One man shouted that his elderly mother needed to get to town. The deputy stepped between them before it got physical. He told everyone to disperse and advised the HOA board members, who had suddenly gone very quiet, to consult legal counsel before taking any further action. By dusk, the road was still closed. But the power had shifted completely. The HOA no longer controlled the narrative. Karen no longer controlled the crowd. And everyone now understood one thing with absolute clarity. The only way to town reopened when I decided it was safe, and not 1 second before. The road reopened the next morning, quietly, professionally, and on my terms. I was out there before dawn again, this time with proper clearance, flares placed, and my snowblower running uninterrupted. No one tried to stop me. No one even looked my way. Cars lined up patiently as the first clean lane appeared, drivers nodding in relief as they passed. The contrast from the day before was striking. Where there had been shouting and threats, there was now silence, and something else. Respect, mixed with embarrassment. Karen didn't come out. By noon, the HOA's tone changed completely. An email went out to the entire neighborhood, signed not by Karen, but by the remaining board members. The message was stiff and carefully worded, acknowledging a misinterpretation of road authority, and announcing that all fines related to snow removal were rescinded immediately. They promised to cover emergency snow removal costs moving forward and stated that the HOA would no longer attempt to regulate the private access easement. No apology yet, but the retreat was obvious. The apology came 3 days later. It arrived as a certified letter, addressed to me and copied to the county. The HOA formally acknowledged that the road was private, that Karen had acted outside her authority, and that any prior enforcement actions were void. They agreed in writing not to interfere with maintenance, safety decisions, or emergency closures in the future. More importantly, they agreed to fund a permanent winter maintenance contract, one that required my written coordination during storms. Karen's name was nowhere on the document. She was gone by the end of the month. Officially, she resigned for personal reasons. Unofficially, the neighbors had enough. Videos of her screaming at the sheriff circulated in group chats. The email where she told people to stay inside during a medical emergency resurfaced. At the next HOA meeting, attendance tripled. A vote was held. The rest of the board survived by distancing themselves from her completely, rewriting bylaws, and, ironically, adding a clause about limits of HOA authority. I attended that meeting. I didn't speak much. I didn't have to. The room already knew who had been telling the truth. Weeks later, long after the snow melted, a neighbor stopped me while I was checking my mailbox. He thanked me, not for blocking the road, but for forcing the HOA to learn something it never had before. That power only exists where it's legally granted, and silence only works until someone reads the paperwork. Karen never approached me again. She moved shortly after selling her house. The new owner waved the first time we met. Now, every winter morning at 6 a.m., my snowblower fires up without interruption. No cameras. No threats. No quiet hours. Just the sound of snow being cleared and a road opening the way it always should have. Because the truth is simple. She thought she controlled the road. She thought authority came from volume and titles. But when the snow fell and the records came out, she learned the hard way. You can't bully a deed.